Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Djangonaut Showcase. We have two events today. We have this event and we have another one in a few hours at 6:30 p.m. UTC. You're more than welcome to attend both. To give you a little bit of background on why we are having this event, the inspiration comes in two parts. The first part, we heard feedback from you. Many of you expressed that you wanted to share your learnings and experiences with each other. And hopefully this is just a starting point to get you to do that and to build connections with each other and find ways to collaborate when you're contributing to open source. The second part is trying to give you an opportunity to practice speaking. If you're trying to share your ideas and thoughts, speaking is a good way to do that. So we're going to have this, it's going to have a similar format to lightning talks at conferences. Each person speaks for up to 5 minutes. I'll be keeping track of time. And if you go over, I'll interrupt and I'll let you know that it's time to wrap up. So just to set the tone, this is a really safe space and we're here to support each other and celebrate our achievements. If you feel that you've made a mistake or said something wrong, don't sweat it. We're all here to learn together. So let's jump right into it. We have 3 speakers for this event. We have Abdulwasiu from Team Mars working on Django CMS. We have Daniel from Team Saturn working on Django Core. And we have Soyoung from Team Venus working on Django Core. So first up, Abdul, why don't you take it away?
Hello, everyone. I just so I'm sure. Not. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you loud and clear.
Oh, okay. Right. My name is Abdulwasiu. A little bit about myself. I'm a recent computer engineering graduate. When I'm not coding, I love to read books, and lately I've been dabbling into article. I'm a member of Team Mass of the third session of the Djangonaut Space, and that means I mostly worked on the Django CMS ecosystem. So this lightning talk is going to be about some of the issues I worked on. My first issue was a documentation fix. So I have so what I like to do with any open source project I come in contact with is to get like a copy from Git and install it locally, going via the documentation guide or installation guide or anything that is on the documentation page. Right. So I noticed that Django CMS did not have like an installation guide. And so I raised an issue to Fabian, which is the navigator, that okay, I would like to like write an installation guide for people that just come into the project to be able to like get a copy and have it working locally. Yeah, I gave the go ahead and I worked on the issue. So it was really it was a really nice initial addition to the project. It allowed me to understand Sphinx, which is like the documentation, like was mostly used for like making documentation in Python. Then and then after that, I wanted to work on something a bit more technical. And so when I was going through the project, I noticed that the CMS command. So basically, when you run Python manage.py then CMS, it throws like a Python error, like an attribute error or something like that. And I think I read somewhere in the past that for CLI, it's always better for the error message to be handled, and instead of like throwing like a Python error, it should give something more like easier on the eye, on the user's eye, basically. And so that was the second issue I worked on. And already the fix was not elaborate, like it was maybe like 2 lines of code, but it allowed me to understand how like management commands worked in Django, like how to add more CLI, like how to add more commands to manage.py, and how to like say for example in Django, you can have Python manage.py, then run server, then a positional argument, maybe the port or something like that, right? But in Django CMS, they have like 2 levels of command. So basically, for example, you can have Python manage.py, CMS, then like another command, maybe copy then before you have positional agreement. So it was really nice to see how to add like that extra level of command to a Python project. Then I worked on a couple more doc fixes to the user guide, and currently I'm working on an issue on the Django filer. So basically, Django filer is like a third-party app for managing files in Django. Right. This Django filer project has really opened my eyes into like how to add custom model feeds to a project, and how to customize it so the way it appears in the admin channel. So for example, foreign keys. When you add foreign keys to a model, it's by default it comes in select boxes, right? But then you can edit it in the admin to come in different forms. So it was really nice to see how that works. And that's basically everything about what I've been working on. And I'd like to thank Rahmat for the weekly meetings, Fabian for his guides throughout the project, and the Djangonaut organizers for the ideas. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you, Abdulwasiu. That was amazing. Up next, we have Daniel from Team Saturn. Take it away, Daniel.
Okay. Sorry, I didn't mean to start with a cough. So I am Daniel. I'm also known as Mr. Rios in various platforms on GitHub, my Gmail, Twitter, Fastodon, in a lot of places. So it's sort of, the identity that I've chosen for myself because my father was not Mr. Rios. I decided to be Mr. Rios. So my history with Django actually starts in 2016 when I started developing in Django professionally. And a couple years later in 2019, and this is why I have 2019 as a significant date, I actually contributed to Django. And back then it was just Carlton and Marius, and those are the only people I had contact with. Carlton I already knew from a couple Django cons, and Marius I'd met, because he was the other Django fellow. But the process itself was just very, I don't know, it just seemed very sparse. It seemed like those are the only two people, who were doing the whole project. And then after that, the pandemic happened. I started working at a company where we didn't use Django so much. And so I essentially stopped contributing. But recently, I think it must have been in September, whenever the deadline was, I saw a post by Rachel Calhoun on LinkedIn saying, the third Djangonaut session is happening. And I remembered to an email I'd gotten last year about the first session where I opened it up, I read it, and I said, oh, maybe I'll do this. And then I never saw the email again. So my question, especially since I have a lot of years of experience, was should I even apply to the program? I've been going to DjangoCon Europe since 2016. When I go to a Django meetup in Berlin, I know half the people. I'm very into the community. I've worked in Django a lot. I've done 3 contributions. So is this program for me? And Rachel said, after consulting with everybody, that she seemed to think so. And if I wanted to, like have a beginner's mind again, I could apply. Um, so I was like, sure. I applied. I thought the application would take 5 minutes. It took much longer than that. But I had a very good feeling because it was one of those applications that really like challenged you. So I was very much looking forward to the program if I got in. And then I got the email that I got in, so I was really happy about that. The first few weeks were a bit difficult for me, partly because it seemed like my team, Yash and Sarah, Sarah from Dublin, not the Django fellow, it seemed like they were just doing pull requests left and right. And I was like, oh my God, I'm so behind. It said to start with a documentation ticket, and the documentation ticket is for it was for custom start project and start app structures, like file structures, which when I pulled the ticket, I was like, oh, I don't know if I want to do this. And an hour later, I was like, oh, I didn't know I cared so much about this. So because it took me so long and because, I thought I'd have 3 PRs by the end of the program, like completely merged. I realized at some point that it's not a sprint. I'm not here to just get a lot of PRs like done. It's a big process, and instead of being a sprint, it's a marathon. And for me, I had the mindset that my contributions to Django are not just within this program, but as the program intends, that they'll stretch out even after this program. And I'm very thankful for all the resources in the Djangonaut worksheet. It's just been really incredible to get a lot of information, a lot of input, and sort of have that be the education for becoming a Django contributor. So thank you to my team, who's even if they didn't know it, they've been pushing me along. And I also wanted to have also a special mention to the Django fellow Sarah Boyce, who's also been sort of nudging me along, and she got me to get my blog finally done. I have one post, but rest assured, many more are coming. So thank you to everyone, and that's it.
Thank you, Daniel. That was amazing. It's a good point that you made that it's not a sprint. 'Cause sometimes it could feel like it's a race, but it's not. All right. Up next, we have Soyoung from Team Venus. Soyoung, let's hear from you.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Yes. Yes. So I'm Soyoung, a new Djangonaut from Team Venus, and I'd like to share my little insight about the documentation. I'm a little bit worried at the start because it is not a whole topic related to entirely related to Django, but I think documentation is still an important topic to all developers. So that's why I decided to start with the title, Documentation is All You Need. And I think there are 3 reasons that we should, write some document or some simple notes. Because first, sharing memories, documentation helps us to share memories and feelings of the moment. And as a Djangonaut, I highly recommend you all, not only me, but also all of the developers to write, especially the first moment of the contribution as a Djangonaut, because as the contribution process follows, I think writing that writing only a few sentences helps us to remember the feelings of that moment, and that can helps us to keep up what we have done and keep up the good work, and also and and also the documentation helps us prevents us from being a perfectionist, because as the contribution process goes, sometimes some perfectionists like me tend to think that, oh, I could do better, or I should, or I must do better. And but by writing some documentation or what we have done, we can prevent from being too harsh on ourselves. Yes, so that's the reason I think that documentation is important. And the third reason is about connecting the dots, because as not only as a developer but also as a human, we all of us have different lives and different stories as an individual. And writing the documentation helps us to build our own stories. And that's why I think I decided to recommend you guys about the documentation. And also I really recommend the other Djangonauts to share and just write a few sentences of their our first contribution, because that can helps us to keep up our pace and as a contributor and as a Djangonaut. And here are the links about our my little post about Djangonaut reviews and some little posts. So if you're interested in and you can see some links on it. And thank you for thank you for supporting and sorry, my English is not very good, but thank you for making this warming and welcoming atmosphere to Djangonauts and other contributors. Thank you.
That's amazing, Soyoung. I feel that was great advice, and I feel inspired. Just to give everyone a look at what Soyoung's blog posts look like. Her writing is amazing. There's a lot of content there. So I just wanted to give you guys a look of how much she's been writing throughout this whole time. It's really amazing, very inspiring. All right, let's move on to the Q&A session. And so if anyone has any questions that you want to ask, raise your hand and we'll call on you. Or you can drop your questions into the chat and I'll read your questions out. Any questions for the speakers? I guess I'll have one. For all of you speakers, let's start with Soyoung. What was one of the major hurdles that you encountered when you started contributing?
Actually, the biggest difficulties that I encountered was about the psychological hurdle that some or stereotypes that contribution is an big and something that not the beginners or newbies or amateurs can do. And that's that stereotype is the biggest difficulties that I first encountered. And after the first contribution, actually the first contribution was fixing some fixing some parameters and removing it. And but it was kind of simple. But after that first contribution, I kind of realized that anyone can contribute, and even if they are a beginner or a newbie, they can still part of the community. And I think that's the major hurdle that first contributors may face.
Thanks for sharing. Any other speakers want to add to that? Daniel?
I think my biggest hurdle, and I want to say sorry to Maria for getting your name wrong. Maria and Yash are probably like sick and tired of me complaining about this, but my biggest hurdle is about picking a ticket. And you know, in some of the talks that I've seen over the years, they say like, oh, you know, there's these perfect for beginner like flags or whatever, and you don't really find a lot of tickets that way. And when you're on the first page of the track, you know, you get to the end of it, and it's like, oh, the tickets here are 3 years old already, and then there's tickets that are even older. So my teammate Yash was like, oh, you know, I have 3 tickets that I was thinking of working on. See if any you can take any one of them, any that you want. One of them was okay. The other ones are a bit more advanced because he's working on the ORM right now. And you know, he's also discovering it's a marathon as well because it's not as quick as you think it is sometimes. But my strategy going forward is You know, if I see something vaguely interesting, I will start on it. And if I'm still working on it an hour later, then I will just take the ticket. I did this with one about decimal rounding in the database. And when I think I was like 2 hours into it and I hadn't assigned it to myself, and I was like, I can't believe I'm still doing this. Like, you know, I can't believe I would find this interesting. The ticket's a couple years old, you know, but and it's still probably going to be a big hurdle, like, you know, looking through 8-year-old tickets and being like, ugh. But for me, that is probably the biggest hurdle to overcome. It's just sort of actually finding tickets to work on. Because, you know, as my team has heard me say, when you're at work, you have refinement, you have the product manager. By the time you get to work on the ticket, you already know the ticket. And here it's sort of the opposite. It's almost like you know, what will we find now?
That's very interesting. It's definitely, it feels, it can feel overwhelming sometimes.
Yeah.
Um, Does anyone have any questions? I want to hear from someone else.
I have a question for Abdulwasiu. The installation guide that you added to Django CMS, does Django Core have a similar one? Or do you think that's something that would also be benefited in Django?
I think Django Core has, I'm not sure, but I think so. Because when you apply for Djangonaut Space, maybe I don't get the question, but when you apply for Djangonaut Space, you actually have to submit like a Django, like a pull request. Yeah, I think so. You have to submit like a pull request, right? Against no, well, not against Django, but you have to submit a pull request, then link it to the application process, right? So I think that's basically Django's installation process, right? From like taking it from Git, and so basically something like that. That's what I did for Django CMS, I think.
Okay, cool. Very good.
Right. Well, that was awesome. Great question, Sarah. I think let's thank our speakers, and yeah, that was amazing, everyone. Thanks for sharing all your insights. All right. Hello. Welcome to Djangonaut Showcase. To give you a little bit of background on the inspiration for this event. This event was inspired by two things. The first thing is we heard a lot of feedback from you. Many of you expressed that you want to share your learnings and experiences with each other. And hopefully this is just a starting point for you to do that and to build connections with each other and find ways to collaborate when you're contributing to open source. And then the second thing is we're trying to give you an opportunity to practice speaking. If you're trying to share your ideas and thoughts, speaking is a good way to do that. So we have a similar format to lightning talks at conferences. Each person will speak for up to 5 minutes. I'll be keeping track of time. If you go over, I'll interrupt and let you know that it's time to wrap up. So just to set the tone, this is a safe space. We're here to support each other and celebrate our achievements. If you feel like you made a mistake or said something wrong during this event, don't sweat it. We're all here to learn together. All right, so let's jump right in. So we have 4 speakers for this event. We have Anthony from Team Venus working on Django Core. We have Yash from Team Saturn working on Django Core. We have Sarah from Team Neptune working on accessibility. And we have Maria from Team Saturn working on Django Core. So first up, we have Anthony. The stage is yours, Anthony.
Thank you very much, and good morning from Sydney. Thank you for the introduction as well. I'm from Team Venus in session 3. I was working with Captain Kenya and Navigator Mariusz, who is internationally famous as a Django developer. affectionately think of him as the John Wick of Django, and my fellow cadets, Soyoung and Tai. My original kind of motivations for joining the Djangonaut Space program was I really wanted to give back to a community like Django, which I've taken quite a lot from, but I only realized this year that I was really anxious about the thought of looking foolish in public and making a mistake and ultimately not really giving much return on investment that the community would have in me. So Django Space has kind of been a really cool environment for me to kind of find my voice and find a way to kind of effectively give back to the community. So to kind of talk about 3 tickets I've worked on in the since I've started. So the first one I had was adding support for PostgreSQL explain commands, which is like an optional parameter you can send to get the query plans, adding the memory and serialize. And that was probably my first real foray into doing work on core Django. And Marish was really great in terms of mentoring me through the process and showing like, here's the ticket, here's some example work that's been done in the past. You kind of follow the bouncing ball and get up to a pull request. So having that one completed was a really cool way to kind of get settled in and eventually start to see a pull request getting merged, which was really, really awesome. After that, just looking at the Djangonauts Discord channel, there was an opportunity to update the documentation. And as simple as what might appear to be like a one-line fix can strike up a lot of conversation with a lot of people. And one thing I kind of learned from that was, even though your pull request might be approved and everything like that, you still need to be patient. You might be sitting there waiting for this thing to be merged, but the community kind of can take a little time to kind of merge. So it was a important lesson for me to kind of just be patient. And the ticket I'm currently working on now is to validate the model validations at boot up time, when you check whether or not there is a foreign key name that also happens to match your manager name, and raise an error for raise an error to the users. So that was actually something I'm working on now, and this is going to be my first real foray into doing something by myself. So I think overall the experience has been really great to start to do some coding out in public, give back to a community I've taken quite a lot of, and particularly for anyone with or without coding experience. Like, I've been coding since 2004, so in various languages. So this is my first real time giving back to a community I take quite a lot from. That this has been great, and I'm excited to kind of contribute any more in the future. So yeah, thanks everyone.
Thank you, Anthony. That's amazing to see a variety of work from documentation to the SQL explain, and pointing out that you need a lot of patience for this. Thank you so much. Up next, we have Yash from Team Saturn. Yash, take it away.
So, hi everyone. My name is Yash. I'm one of the Djangonauts in the session 3. My navigator was Paulo, and my captain was Miguel, and my lovely Djangonaut crewmates were Daniel and Maria. I had a lovely time with them. Like, for the past 7 weeks, I've been working through issues and learning a lot of stuff. So, first of all, from my slide, I will go with like my experience till now has been like a very rocket boost, because I was also trying to contribute to Django before the program started. I had a PR, but when I joined the whole program, okay, so I was seeing so many guys working. I was seeing Anthony in the chats, in the texting. I was seeing my crewmates working and finding issues and stuff. So it was like I was not alone. So it's a great thing. Djangonaut helped me a lot to give me that boost. So I've been working. So and the next thing I believe is that this thing called, like, which is the most common thing I noticed among everybody, was that breaking the ice between you and the track system. It's a very big thing to find that perfect ticket that everybody tries to find. Until now, I have fixed few issues which have been merged. So from my experience to this point, I feel like it's just like you go through something, you're interested, something even interests you 1%, you just go full on towards it. It's not about ever about that finding that perfect, that perfect ticket. It's more like, just getting onto it, learning more of that stuff, just get to know that ticket better. Just sit there and just learn. That's one part of things. Then next, this is then like one of the learnings I had. No ticket is like, every ticket teaches you something. Like for like even the minor documentation issues, I remember, and same as Anthony said, I picked this issue of writing documentation. I thought it will take hardly 1-2 days. I just wrote the whole documentation. I thought like it will get merged in the next 2-3 days because I thought it was like very good. But it took, I guess, 10 days. I and Sarah had a like really wrong conversation. You need to change this, you need to change that, and this and that, a lot of things. And then we finally came to this conclusion that yeah, this looks good. So a good documentation, like writing a good documentation, is an art itself. That's what I got to do. Rest, even that documentation taught me a lot. Like because the research that goes to write that perfect, that perfect documentation, how the objects are working. I worked around, I guess, DB default. Like I was working around like how the DB default and all works. So I had to write the documentation for it. So it taught me a lot on the background, how Python memory is using it. So each issue helps you a lot to learn. Next, I love the Django IRM. So for the past, from the week 3, I picked this issue of like, adding atomic absurd support. And since that week, I've been learning so much. Obviously, I haven't raised a PI yet because it's a very big issue. Like I've been like learning a lot. I've made so much notes. Half of my copy is filled with flowcharts and stuff, how to do this, because, ORM is a bit tricky, but I love because it's okay. I didn't like raise the PR, but the amount of learnings I had in the past 4 weeks, I feel like I become more of a better Django developer because you get to know about the internal workings, how things are working inside. Because it's really good because I realize like you passing fields when you're creating instances in the models. They are having like, all these things are converted into a field object, then how it uses psychopg to raises that and send that query and generates, the compiler generates that query. It's going to Postgres, it's handling all the, also while contributing the ORM, I also got to chance of reading Postgres docs and how they are working, how internals, everything is working. So it's a pleasant experience for a guy like me. It's a pleasant experience. So totally, I've enjoyed all of my time, and working with Django RM has been really great. Hopefully, I will raise a PI this week or maybe next 1 month, but I will try my best. So yeah, that's all from my side.
Thank you, Yash. That was really good advice. It's really nice to hear your perspective of like going through finding a PR that's really interesting to you. And then also like hearing you going through this much bigger PR with the ORM. Really good work. Our last speaker is Maria from Team Saturn. Maria?
Yep.
Let's hear from you.
Yes. I was inspired to talk today after being to the previous talk where my teammate Daniel was giving a speech, and I just and everybody who spoke there was very encouraging, and I just feel that I wanted just to share how I felt about this program, being on it. And at first I didn't think that I had anything to say because I felt that I didn't contribute as much as other people did, but I know that we're all working at different paces, and it is great to belong to something like this where we can take our time and think of it as the long journey. So just to start, when I did get in, I was absolutely delighted, and I wanted to think that I would merge a lot of tickets, solve a lot of tickets. But very quickly on, I realized that I felt a bit more like the naut in Djangonauts, in the sense that, I felt that I wasn't contributing as much or as quickly as I would like. So I was quite impatient, and I thought I wanted to make a difference very quickly. So yeah, thinking back, how did I feel that way so soon, was more to do with looking at the tickets and thinking, the easy ones that are classified as easy, they're kind of tough for me. And I spent a lot of time reading tickets, trying to decide how do I know which one I would be able to do, and realizing that it takes a long time to think about how can I replicate the issue, will I be able to replicate the issue. So there was a lot of that, and all the time this is happening, I knew, well, I'm not doing anything, I'm just reading. So I felt yeah, I felt like the note in Djangonauts. So, you know, but then it was the fact that we had team meetings, that we meet our team regularly, and from that, it, you know, I learned a lot from the people on the team. So it was great that we do meet regularly, because, you know, I realized that the wins that we have, they're not related to how many tickets we solve or how many PRs get merged. It's all about learning, and taking that learning into the future with us. So I can say I have some wins that were visible and invisible wins as well. So my visible ones would be that, you know, I did do tickets. I did do small tickets that were merged. And I would recommend to somebody who's starting to maybe, because track can be kind of daunting to look at, Yash said it, and a lot of people feel that way. You know, my first ticket was one that wasn't even on track. It was just so small. But the thing is, the process to merge something or to get something merged is the same, whether you've done a ticket, whether you've taken a ticket off track or whether you don't. So the thing is, if a ticket is so small, you can still raise a request. So that was a great thing to know about and to do, because yeah, I got through the process of merging, creating, describing what was the issue, fixing it, and getting feedback, and then getting it merged, and just getting that process. So I did a couple of those, which was great. So I also reviewed somebody else's MR, small MR, but it meant I had to, you know, download his branch and replicate it, and so that was good. And that MR has been approved, so that's a win for me, to think that I thought that MR was fine. So and it was. So then my invisible wins, which I will take with me, you know, are the fact that I didn't realize this, but even though I felt kind of daunted and, you know, worried that I wasn't doing enough, my other team members, I've heard that they were like motivated by me and other people on the team. So even though, because we keep each other motivated. So, you know, and it's nice to know that even if I don't have a major tickets to show, that I'm still able, that I've still been a motivation to other people. And that's what you get by being a Djangonaut and being on the teams. So I like that. The other thing is, no matter what, there's always new knowledge. I'm always learning new things. Even if there's nothing to show for it, it's I've got it, and I can use it eventually in more tickets. As you do stuff, you bring along your knowledge to the next thing. So yeah, another win for me was not being so skeptical of social media, because I'm not used to, you know, blogging or even talking on channels with other people, and I think that's good for me. That's something I got out of this. So yeah, I wanted to thank everybody, and I like all the help that everybody has given me on this, and you know, even the people on Discord that I've never met who react to posts. You know, it's lovely. It's great, because you might say something and somebody will give you a smile, and it's just nice to be part of that. And I think it really is helpful to have people keep going. So basically the thing is, my mistake at the start was the very first sentence there, where I said I want to have 10 things merged by the time this is over. And the thing is, it's not ever over, and that's the thing to remember, because everything we do is just the start, and we should never think when this is over, because yeah, that's not going to happen. Right? You're not going to have all these major wins straight away, and just to understand that that's not a failure. Yeah, and so that's me. Thank you.
Thank you, Maria. I love hearing everything you had to share. And, you know, sometimes you don't realize how much you contribute and how much you've learned until you work on a team and have people give you some feedback. So thank you for that. All right. We're gonna go into a Q&A session. So if anyone has any questions that you want to ask, feel free to raise your hand and we'll call on you, or drop your question into the chat and I'll read the questions from the chat. So anyone want to start us off? I guess I'll start us off. Let's see. Let's see.
Could I ask a question?
Yeah,
Maria,
yeah.
could you tell us more about this 12-year-old ticket that you merged?
Yeah, well, yeah. So probably the most amazing thing about it is that it was 12 years old. So as long as people don't ask for the detail, it's quite impressive. But it was simply that somebody had pointed out that they found it very hard to integrate a custom backend. They were doing it fine, and they were doing it and working. It didn't work out for them anyway. And it was something so simple. They just didn't have a field set to active, or they didn't realize the most basic thing had to be set. So it was just to say, put it in the docs in a different place, what the basic requirements are, so that I don't have to go looking everywhere. And when I read the docs, I could see that it wasn't clear. And the other thing was, it was from version 1.3. So even just to say, okay, I might add something in here, I had to go back and check the page from that time, build the docs from that time to see what had they seen at that time that wasn't easy, what had they seen? And it was actually the same as today. So I was able to say, yeah, it hasn't changed, and this is an update. That little investigation was fun. Yeah, that was it.
That's amazing. Does anyone have any questions to ask? If not, I'll ask one. Let's see. So, sorry. Let's see. Sarah, do you want to talk about any accessibility PRs that you've worked on that you learned a lot from?
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, I am not super familiar with CSS. I have a cursory introduction, as most of my experience has been on building out the APIs. And so the whole thing was a learning experience. And, kind of more generally for anybody who is going to create a issue for Django, like, learning the track, like learning to create a ticket, learning the specific way to, the specific markup language for track, the digging through, and then, being able to run Django core locally to create to set up tests in your local project. I was really lucky. Tibalt, who's also on the DSF, has already like created a entire repo that has a bunch of tests for running accessibility specific changes in your local so that you can test and find out. And so learning how to utilize his repo, which is amazing to have access to those kinds of tools. Without that, it would have taken me so much longer to be able to test the changes that I'm making. Contrast is super important for people with low visibility or color blindness. And the Django website is in the process of being made more accessible. And that's awesome. So, just working with CSS and with T-Ball and his tools was pretty amazing.
That's awesome. Yeah, I think there were other conversations about like getting started, and there's just so much around getting started. There's like the tools, the tests, and even the topic of the PR that you're picking. Sometimes it could be so overwhelming. So definitely good to hear that you were able to work your way through all of that with, Thibaut's help and your team's help. There is a really interesting question that Tim put in the chat. He's asked, has anyone else done code review and how did it go? And I see Yash says he has done it. Anthony says it's on his to-do. Does anyone have any advice on how to do code review?
Mariusz mentioned that there was a pull requests like checklist that is good for people who are getting started into doing reviews, which is covers some like the basic hygiene. And I think that it's particularly useful for us new contributors because it can let us know, like it kind of help get like some of the basic foundation work sorted before I guess other people come along and do some more detailed reviews based off their experience. So I like to think that by even us like newbies can start to kind of help clear some of like the lower hanging fruit, for lack of better words, and I guess have a net decrease on the stress on the on some of the more seasoned reviewers.
Thank you, Anthony, for sharing that. The checklist, I don't know if I've ever seen that checklist, but that would be interesting to share.
I'll
all right.
find the link and post it in the chat and probably in the Discord as well.
All right, yeah, that would be amazing. Well, thank you to all the speakers. This has been amazing to hear from everyone and to hear all the questions. It's been wonderful, and hope you guys keep contributing.